Hi, I'm Yuri Marinovich.
I'm Ethan Sawyer.
And I'm Gunnar Sherlin, and this is our presentation on on-site power generation for peak load shaving in manufacturing facilities.
First, begin with the generalized issue. Companies with varying machinery sizes all have varying power problems where they have spikes in their loads, which causes an increase in their costs overall. Some of the solutions to this, however, could be throttling production, where you actually go in and maybe with a variable speed control or a different method along those lines to where you actually turn down the production value of the machine itself, maybe setting it to instead of 100%, 70%, and being able to reduce your overall load at the time, and in turn being able to reduce cost. Second option would be to offset your machine loads. If you offset your machine loads, that would be maybe you have 3 machines and you're running one in the morning, one in the middle shift, and one in the evening. So by doing that, you don't have to worry about actually having to reduce load, but you then are in turn spreading out your average load and decreasing costs on the peak loads. Your third option would be to add a power bank, and these graphs represent more of that style. By adding a power bank, you're able to not have to reduce either your overall efficiency or spreading it out over the day and maximizing your efficiency at all times. And during these peak hours, here with the blue, it's offset by the batteries that are absorbing in your lower times or your downtime. And by doing that, you're able to ultimately reduce your costs associated with your overall peak load by offsetting the highs with the battery loads.
I'm going to add on to what Ethan said, talking about power banks. You can add a battery energy storage system, or BESS for short. There are 2 different types. There's a fixed rate and a dynamic rate. So during the fixed, it's either temperature controlled or time controlled. So this means you're going to recognize when your peak loads are happening or occurring, and you're going to set to use the power bank during that time. Great. This is beneficial for companies who know when their peak load is happening or occurring, and you can set the battery bank to discharge during that time. So what that means is you'll be pulling from the battery bank as versus to from the grid. So you'll be avoiding those charges. This is ideal if you have a constant output. This is not ideal if there is a lot of fluctuations in the peak time or you want that real-time feedback. So that's where you may want a dynamic rate, which is, it'll change as it goes. So based on temperature or time, if you're seeing a lot of spikes, you're gonna change accordingly versus being set at a fixed rate. You can also do it based on power load. So how much do you really need to be using as much power to ramp up equipment, or can you use a little bit less depending on the time? A fixed rate also, if you are under the demand limit, you say, hey, I want to run at 7 p.m. Well, if you're running at 7 p.m. and you're not reaching those peak hours, you then are wasting energy. Essentially, you're just saying, hey, I want to use the battery bank during the peak hours, so I'm off the grid. You're using your own electricity that you've already generated. So battery energy system storage, this is just one way. You do have to generate the energy, but this is how you use that energy once it's been generated, which Gunnar will talk about next.
In this report, we're going to study 4 different methods of on-site power generation: diesel generator, general power bank, solar system, solar panel system, and wind turbine. The first one, the diesel generator, is not going to power a power bank. It's just going to turn on when the peak hours come and you need extra power, so you're not taking as much from the grid. It will run on diesel, so that will limit your savings because you'll have to pay for diesel every time you want to run the generator, but it is commonly used and installed, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue. The second option is just a battery energy storage system. This is kind of like what Ethan and Yuri were talking about. It would charge during the off-peak hours and then discharge during the on-peak hours to help manage that on-peak load. It would shift the power grid usage instead of decreasing the usage, and that would limit your savings as well, because you're still paying for that energy just at a different time and a different price rate. And then another method of charging batteries is solar panels. So solar panels charge during daylight hours, and then they would discharge during peak hours. One of the things about solar panels is large square footage is required. It doesn't have to necessarily be off side of the building, it could be on the roof, but if you're going to put on the roof, you need a large square footage of roofing space, or you can put it in a field nearby, as long as you have access to sunlight regularly. This would be affected in areas with poor weather or poor sunlight access, and that would be an issue. But a positive of the solar panels is that there's no run costs. It's charging with the sunlight, and you don't have anything else that you need to pay for in terms of energy. And then the last one would be wind turbine generation. This would charge 24/7. As long as there's wind moving, it would charge. One of the things that you do need to make sure you have if you're going to put wind turbines is 10-mile-per-hour winds in an open outdoor space. Generally, if you're going to put it on the ground level, they recommend an acre per wind turbine of open space. But you could put it on the roof, and that could maybe help with your wind speeds a little bit. One thing to note about the wind turbine is that it has the highest installation costs. Installing wind turbines is not cheap because it's pretty new technology in terms of small scale industrial level power generation. But another thing is it has no run costs and it charges 24/7, which is an advantage over the solar. So in our case, we picked just a standard manufacturing plant that's using roughly about 450 kilowatts of power, of electric power, on average throughout the day. And then for the peak, it would be about 700 kilowatts. So, when the facility is running the most things and it's running all of its machines at once, it's about 700 kilowatts. And that usually coincides with the on-peak times and the on-peak rates. And then the off-peak was a little bit less, like overnight, for about 8 hours. We assumed about 325 kilowatts. With those numbers and with a 100 kilowatt generator, a 50 kilowatt energy storage system, a 470 watt per unit solar panel, and 20 kilowatts per wind turbines, we created some numbers based on some projections that we had. Here you can see that savings per year with one of each, so like one generator, one power bank, 1,000 square feet of solar panels, and one wind turbine. The most savings you get would be with the solar panels because it has low run costs and it runs efficiently because it's all powered by daylight. So that's about a little under $13,000 per year on peak energy storage savings, and that's the most. In terms of simple payback period, it varies a little bit because of the price of installation. So like I said, wind turbine has the highest installation costs. Installing one wind turbine can cost up to $100,000, so it has the highest simple payback period. Generator is the second highest because not only do you have to install an expensive generator, you also have to pay for diesel to run it, and so that's going to hurt your savings and hurt your payback period. But again, solar panel generation is the best option for this because solar panels don't cost as much, and you can get the installation fee can be alleviated due to clean energy programs, and so that is the best in simple payback period and energy savings per year, and so that is what I would recommend in terms of on-site power generation.